All right, it's Pro Bono, where we talk about the law with lawyers and other miscreants. I'm Ed Nahhat. Thanks for joining us. Today's guest is the incomparable, incomparable Alan May. Alan, thank you for being here today.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you to talk about the law.
I know. I've got a warning to you right now, Mr. May. I call you Mr. May most of the time. Alan, if I'm overly obsequious to you during this interview, it's because you're my legal hero, and I've asked the crew to ring a bell if I'm overly complimentary to you during this interview, because you are the reason that I work at this law firm. Now, how long have you been here?
I would say 24 years.
24. But before that, you had your own firm called May & May?
That's correct, from 1967 until about 2000.
And that's fascinating to me because May & May, the other May, was your dad, wasn't he?
He was.
And that's what we have in common, because I had a firm called Nahhat and Nahhat way back in the day, and I've always found that to be a cool thing that we had in common, that we each had a firm named after ourselves and our fathers. I'm sorry I've never met your dad, but I can tell that he was an inspiration for you. Is he why you became a lawyer?
I don't know.
Uh-huh.
When we talked before as to why I became a lawyer, I truthfully answered the question. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But being together with him and seeing him as other than a father was a lifetime experience, and those 13 years were a blessing.
Seeing him work, seeing him achieve.
Seeing him in a work environment.
Something happened in those days, Mr. May, I'll tell you, because I looked through your CV, as it were, and I don't know who could possibly do all this. You're super lawyers forever, best lawyers forever, New York Times top attorneys in Michigan, leading lawyers in Michigan, and those are just accolades. You're a public administrator in Wayne County.
Yes.
You've been appointed to the Civil Rights Commission in Michigan. You're appointed as a receiver in Wayne County. You've got all sorts of things. But the thing that really impressed me the most, I don't think I know anyone else in the world who's been appointed by two different governors of different parties to significant posts in our state. Now, how does one get appointed by a Republican governor and then a Democratic governor?
Well, the appointment as a Republican governor, I was pleased to have a very close relationship with Governor Bill Milliken. And when there was an opening on the Civil Rights Commission, he came to me and asked me if I would serve. Civil service was a little bit different. I had finished 4 years on the Civil Rights Commission, and by a statutory requirement, and there was a Republican opening.
Uh-huh.
So I had a wonderful relationship with Jim Blanchard when he was a congressperson and then with a governor, and he called upon me to ask me to make the switch from one commission to another.
Well, that's a way of giving back for any lawyer, but it's really an interesting level of giving back. That some lawyers, they like to, I like to give back through the arts. Some lawyers like to give back through charity. You give back through civil service. You give back through legal service. You write articles almost every other week about the law, and you give away your research for free.
Well, it's also casting bread upon the waters. There are people that read these and call me up and ask me for legal advice, but it's also a learning experience. We never had postgraduate legal education when I started practicing. It wasn't required. It wasn't even offered. There were occasional seminars. And I asked my father, how do you keep up with the law? He says, I read advance sheets.
Right. This is what I want to know. What is an advance sheet?
An advance sheet is something that's published before the hard copy of a book, Michigan Reporter or Michigan Court of Appeals forms.
Like these books.
Like those books, somewhat
Okay.
like those books. And he would read them assiduously, and so I started reading them. And I aim it at the practitioner, not at the legal scholar. What to watch out for if you're drafting, what to watch out for if you're a litigator.
What I love about your articles is you take the time to look at a Court of Appeals opinion. You summarize it. You offer a couple of suggestions. Probate practitioners all across the state can read it. It's on our website. You send it out into the mail to anyone who wants to be on your mailing list. I found it very helpful, especially in a case where I had a case against you. I was reading your work, not you personally, but against your firm represented a client that I represented a client against, and I could read your work.
Well, there's no such thing as an enemy. Sometimes lawyers try to be, but I would much prefer to have a smart lawyer on the other side than a dumb one that keeps fumbling forward. You get to the bottom line a lot quicker with a smart lawyer on the other side. And
I find that so fascinating about probate work is that it seems like more than any other field, in probate work, you have two lawyers who, by the looks of it, are adversaries, but they actually, in a certain way, are fighting for the benefit of, often for the benefit of someone else.
a client will come into you who says, my brother has stolen from me and my father, and I want to make this right, and it's a matter of principle. It's a matter of principle till they get the request for the second retainer.
Your practice involves taking care of, I don't know, what is it, hundreds of people who have guardianships and conservatorships, so that there's a lot of people who rely on you and your practice and your team that aren't super wealthy, people who have benefits, people who live in care facilities, and they all rely on you and your team for care and maintenance of their income.
It is small profit, or in some cases loss, but for instance, last week you receive a call from a judge who has a problem case and said, would you please take it? Well, the answer is yes. And if it turns out to be a financial loser, it doesn't particularly matter, because the judge will remember that we took care of it. And I think the key word that you used there is team, because there may be individuals that can satisfy the needs of a special needs person from soup to nuts, but there is a team here. And each person is assigned to a different task of working with governmental authorities to making sure benefits are there and properly received. There are people that work in the banking sphere to make sure that money, that the accounts are audited. There are people that work with physicians and hospitals to make sure that we believe they are observing the law regarding special needs people. And sometimes monitoring their care, which watching to see that they get the best care that they can. So it is in my case, it is the reliance on an excellent team.
How many people do you think at any given time does your team provide care for from a conservatorship and guardianship basis?
In terms of people that are without wealth,
Right.
about 100.
Yeah.
In terms of people with wealth, about 100. That's regarding that second group of people, I'm like a small bank. And banks have high turnover of staff. They can't relate to the needs of a special needs person. Our staff can. And when you charge less than a bank and can still make a profit, and you can get somebody on the phone, whether it's me or some portion of the team.
One of the other things I admire about you is, oh wait, the bell went off. Sorry. Yeah. But seriously, I have been taking notes about you, and I've learned that you told me about taking a call from a judge. just a few minutes ago, and I've done a little bit of homework, and I've learned that several judges worked for you, or clerked for you, or were attorneys for you at some time in the past. Isn't that right?
It's a pleasure to hear that articulated. It's something of which I'm very proud. Mentoring is best done informally. And yes, I have worked together with people, starting with clerks all the way up, who have become either successful counsel or have gone into the judiciary or into governmental service. I've had perhaps 4 or 5 people that have become judges all over the state.
I'm sure they appreciate. I mean, I know I do. I think everyone at this firm does. I personally experience it every day. I'm probably going to be a little bit embarrassed to say this, but most lawyers around here, when they have a legal question, they jump to their computer and they go to LexisNexis or Westlaw or Thomson Reuters. But I go to Alan May's office first.
The younger ones do.
Oh, sorry, the bell's going off again.
All right.
Yeah, but it's true. I do.
Well, you can get answers from Westlaw, but I don't like it. It's like reading head notes of a case. You can't turn a page on Westlaw. You get another case, and it's only giving you a blurb. By turning the page, you might find out something that differentiates from the previous page. And what I have done, and in one of our back rooms where our clerk is, there are about 700 files. And each of these files contains either an article that I've written, a brief that I've written, or a court order that I've been able to obtain. I'm blessed with a good memory to try to say, well, I do remember something like that. It's good to know if you're wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
So you can watch out for that if the other side spots it, or when you have an ethical duty to disclose it.
Knowing you're wrong is really interesting. It's like the first step toward wisdom in the law practice. You know, when you realize, oh, that's not going to work. How do you tell your client that?
You be transparent, and you say to the client, this is what I think, this is what my opponent thinks. I'll try to place myself in the position of a judge to try to say this is what a judge may think, and these are the consequences. We have an unwritten rule in this office, and I observe it very carefully, and that's if the newest clerk comes in and has the guts to tell me that I'm full of it, the chances are I am.
So that's part of the collaboration we have here.
It's necessary. No person is an island.
You know, I was reading about your writing. I know that seems odd to say, but I discovered something that you don't really brag about around here, but I discovered that you're an author of fiction.
Yes.
And you've got 3 novels published already.
3 published, 1 sitting in an editor's desk, 1 and 2 in a can right now. And yeah, it gives me a great deal of pleasure. There's certain things that you can do in the law and outside of the law where time flies.
Yeah.
And when you get immersed in something, you can look up and find out an hour has passed. Your mind is really in neutral, and your pen and ink are doing the job for you.
There's one part of your writing that you clearly don't need anyone to help you with, and that is your baseball writing. I call you, around here, I call you the Casey Stengel of Kemp Klein, because you seem to know all the players. You seem to know who has the skill set, and you identify who's the right person to play first base, so to speak. But you have this knowledge about baseball lore and excuse me. You have this knowledge about baseball lore and baseball statistics that is pretty impressive. There goes the bell again, and it's in all of your articles, all of your advance sheets.
Yes, that is true. We have a motto that memories are the only refuge from which a man cannot be driven. I don't particularly care for contemporary baseball. I write about it, but I don't care for it. And I'm stuck back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
What do you think about the pitching time clock?
Well, I agree with it. I don't think that stalling isn't in anyone's interest in the law or in baseball.
We were talking about probate litigation briefly. I touched on your team's care for people in need in guardianship and conservatorship, but we didn't really get into the nuances of trust litigation or will disputes very much before that. And I find that to be a fascinating area. It's part of my practice with you. Where do you come down on the concept that is hotly debated these days, at least within our circle, the concept of undue influence? It's a legal concept that some lawyers think it should be done away with, that undue influence as a presumption shouldn't exist anymore.
I will say that I agree with the presumption of undue influence, and I'll tell you why. Parents, relatives, friends, and clergy, in my experience, have their hand out. I'll give you an example. My father had a very serious operation. He was very close to death. He pulled through at that time. And he had been practicing 40 years at the time, a lot of it probate law. He knew about presumptions of undue influence. And he said to me, see that nurse over there? She's been very nice to me. Bring me in a check for $10,000 and make it out to Mrs. Jones over there. I said, okay, Dad. Of course I didn't. And a week later I came in. He says, did you write that check for $10,000? I said, no. He said, don't. Make it $150.
Wow.
Well, he was getting better.
Yeah.
But even he, a person of great mental acumen, great strength, was placing himself in a very untenable position.
Well, isn't that part of the leverage and the strategy toward a favorable settlement, that you marshal that argument?
Yet, although people feel very righteous about their positions, both sides, and I have something that I say around the office. I stole it fair and square, but yes, it's good leverage on both sides, and sooner or later the truth comes out in someone's mind, and the truth being that a bad settlement is better than the best lawsuit.
But isn't that the reason why we have courts? And isn't that the reason why we have a justice system in the first place, that we can have disputes among individuals and groups worked out in a civilized process?
Yes and no. Certainly, yes. It alleviates trial by battle, which at one time was the thing to do.
Think about this. Our own founding fathers, several of them, engaged in duels with each other. There were duels that were accepted as a form of private conflict resolution. At the same time that our revered Constitution was being written, drafted, approved, and promulgated.
We think that with time, people become closer to at least being respectful and moving beyond tolerance towards acceptance and understanding.
You hope so.
It would be my hope, yes.
Well, I want to thank you for spending so much time with me today. Really, it's been a very. I just want to ask you one more question.
Please.
How's the
What are you, Columbo?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
one-
Just
one
one
more
more question. Yeah. How's the family?
Family is good. I am blessed with two beautiful daughters, and one of the daughters has a son who is a youngster now, and my granddaughters are well into their 20s and out of home and away from their family. And he is a baseball star and a track star at 12 and a half, and I love them deeply and love spending time with them.
And I don't see Liz around here very often. She was in the office a lot more when I first started here.
She is a legal assistant. She has found, to our social detriment, that she works better at home.
It's a family business. Alan's wife, Liz, also works in the business, but I haven't seen her in the office much since COVID. And I agree, some people really excel at working at home, and you and I don't. I have to work in the office.
I can write at home. I can do things that regard mathematics in terms of my work at home.
Really?
Oh yeah, but I can't. And occasionally, I will still prepare for an oral argument the evening before at home.
You know what I do? I go for a walk and I talk out loud by myself. People think I'm crazy in the neighborhood because I have to do it out loud.
Well, crazy is a good thing.
Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you joining us today, Alan.
It was a pleasure.
And taking the time out.
You sure you don't want to talk about how you got to this firm?
I don't remember the name of the case that we had adverse to each other that went to the Court of Appeals. This must have been 12, 13 years ago now, that we first met, how we first met.
I don't remember the case particularly, but I do remember, and it goes back to having successful lawyers work with me. I'm a talent spotter, and I'm going to be obsequious. You won, I lost. And I said to myself, well, if he won and I lost, wouldn't you want him here at the firm? So don't ring your bell and let it go in. He beat me fair and square, and he made a good presentation, and the Court of Appeals, as ignorant as they were, bought it.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks a lot for joining us on Pro Bono.
Make sure that gets in. Give him some credit.
And we'll see you on our next episode, where we're going to talk to the CEO of Kemp Klein, Brian Rolfe.